Yo, this is really past the point of mixing, but this is like I'm burning or recording a two-track master, a two-track mix of this piece by Lawrence Christopher called Deer. So while I'm doing that, I figure I'll just kind of go over what I did mix-wise, which wasn't a whole lot. It's a pretty bare bones track. It basically has a drum kit, which is a kick, snare, hi-hat, floor tom, two overheads, a bass MIDI synth bass patch, some live guitar, electric guitar, a vocal, and a pad, which is like a wave, that little synth sound you hear right there, wavy sound. So I had did it the old-fashioned way and did the bounce to disc thing instead of doing a two-track mix, and then I just imported that back into the session, which is why I have all of the individual tracks muted, and I just have the mix that was an imported. It was a exported bounce to disc mix, imported back into the session, put a fade. Chop some of it off because it's pretty long. It's like a lot of instrumental at the end, and I kind of found a spot to cut it, and then just created a fade out, and now I'm recording it with that fade out that I created. So now the fade out is on the recorder. You hear it right there. This is going to be the closing track of the project, so it's kind of fitting that. Well, this isn't my last video, but it's the last thing I'm doing on this project, other than making some videos showing my mix process. So, basically, this was real simple. The tracks we recorded were real clean, and, like I said, real bare minimum thing. Kind of went for a basic kind of soulful, if you're hip to organized noise, the producers that work with Outkast and TLC, In Vogue, who else they work with, Goody Mob, where CeeLo Green comes from, who else, probably Tony Braxton. They work with a lot of Atlanta artists. They're an Atlanta group of producers, one of my biggest influences. So, not that I had anything to do with that sound on this, but kind of the way the tracks came out, that's kind of what we had, and I'm just kind of making a mix. Like, well, let's just kind of go with that sound, which is real. It's like a heavy kick. You got your rim shot, snare sound, and some dirty sounding guitar, with a bass and some poetry. I did do some things with his vocals. Excuse me. Oh my gosh, it's 12:30 a.m. on May 6th. My presentation's in actually 3 days from now that it's actually May 6th. On the lead vocals, I did some of that typical stuff here. There's a 4-band EQ. His voice has a lot of low end to it when he wants it to, especially like if he's being all intimate on the microphone, like he was on this piece. So I took some of his, took some of the low end out, a little dip at 100 hertz, which also helped the bass line and kick, I think. I dipped a little bit out at 262 hertz. trying to use some subtractive EQ methods. Boosted the articulation because, again, like there was some intelligibility, or there's certain parts where you can't really tell what he's saying very clearly. I mean, it's clear, but you know what I'm saying. It was something that could use some clearing up, some articulation. So, needless to say, boosted the heck out of some 2.5 kHz. Gave it not the narrowest bandwidth, which, you know, I fooled around with that. I remember playing around with that to get it where I wanted it. Because if it was too narrow, it was sounding, I don't know, it was like getting nasally or something. It just wasn't sounding good. So I widened it a little bit, and then even boosted a little bit of 6K with a tighter bandwidth, because again, it's like him being so close to the mic, all that low end was just and like I said, the way he was speaking and all that stuff, you know, this was a unique thing doing the poetry thing, because it's a speaking voice that kind of goes in and out of its range, its frequency ranges. Even like mine right now, you know, there are points where you're kind of talking like this, and then and then it kind of lightens up, and you go back in your throat a little bit, and then you're coming back from the gut and all that. So I found that to be pretty, I don't want to say annoying, but it's like, man, it's new, you know. So I definitely gonna have to work on that if I continue to work mixing with his stuff. Or, you know, obviously you can coach a person to get a technique so that their tone is level. Either that or you start using dynamic mics with them all the time or something, which wouldn't have been a bad idea. Probably should have used the RE20 or something. But we used the C414, which we were thinking, I mean, it did. It sounded awesome, but the more I think about it, next time, use a broadcast mic. Keep that thing even. I think that basically would sum up why I was having those issues. So, that's what I was doing there with the vocal, and then put some compression on it. Little more reverb than I did on the other song that he did, which is 2 grams. 25%. Went with the small room setting. And then compression. Boosted 6 dB. Pretty much left everything else. I did come down a little on the threshold. I guess yeah. That was pretty much it. I mean, as soon as I put that on there, it was pretty good. So I think his voice sounds dope. I listened to it on CD in a car, in a car stereo. It sounded dope to me. So it has a commanding presence over the rest of the instruments, which are very heavy. The way these drums were played is, like I said, kick and snare is just thumping. So what I did with there is put some compression on the snare. Kind of settings we got here. Boosted a little bit of gain. Well, not a little bit, but 4.8. Left the threshold. Did take down the release time, which is usually at like, I think 80. So, I made the release a little quicker because it's a snare, I didn't want it to, you can release quicker on a snare, in my opinion. So that was that. Put a little reverb on it, and it was it was a rim shot, really. So went with 30%, so it's a little more reverb than it is on the vocal. I think it's, again, sounds pretty dope to me. I like it's over, not overemphasized, but there's emphasis the kick and the snare, basically. The kick and the snare have an emphasis. That's the best way to put it. And then I put compression on the kick, which I just copied the settings from the snare. And it came out pretty nice. That was pretty much it. Other than that, it was about, I tried some EQs on this synthy bass line, because it is heavy, man. You know how that goes. You get stuff out of a digital realm, and it has so much built into it, because it's not the natural nuances of a bass instrument. But there's it has this electronic blip or click sound to it, since it's synthy. I mean, it's a synthy bass. It's not like it's a bass out of a synth. I mean, it's supposed to be synth sounding. So when I tried to EQ it, I was getting that. When I tried to compress it, it was making that. So then it was just sounding like crap. Where you're supposed to hear some of that on a synth bass, but not the way it was. It was just accenting that part too much. So I ended up just taking all of that off and just left it clean. When I listened to it in the car, it was way too heavy. So, basic maneuver, came in and dropped it some. I think it was that, we learned about the 4 dB rule, so I've kind of started doing the 2 dB, because a lot of times 4 is too much, and I'm kind of already like guessing that I don't want to do a whole 4, so I just started doing 2, and then it's pretty enough of a difference for me to hear, and I'm like, okay, that's it. But sometimes I end up still going down 4, so I just went down 2 on that one to where it is now, which is a negative 4.6. Guitar was kind of meant to be low in the mix anyway, and just kind of had that not smooth, but that kind of underlying smoky, smoked out, gritty, and when I say smoked out, I don't know what that means to anybody, but I'm not suggesting what you're smoking. I'm just saying, hey, smoked out, like a smoky joint, juke joint or something, you know what I mean? That's what I'm saying, smoky club or something, with that kind of undertone, underlying grit sound. That's what I'm trying to say. The pad with the wavy sound, I put that pretty high up in the mix, because I just, it's a softer instrument, so it needed a little boost in volume. Like I said, I brought that bass down. Overheads, put them up pretty high, because he played them really gently, gingerly. It was kind of like tings. There were no crashes at all. But when he does do it, it just has this nuance. It's just sweet. It's dope the way he plays them. Just a little ting, and he hits them, and it's just in this unique way. Panned them pretty far left and right, and like I said, put them up real high so that when he does hit them, they have that little effect. Floor tom, he didn't even hit that very much, so I was able to leave that close to unity. Hi-hat, same thing. He was playing it you heard the track a little bit, and when you hear the track, you hear this like a mellow way of playing the drums, other than the kick and that rim shot, which I put the rim shot pretty high. I mean, it's at 4.2, so your hi-hat's at 6. So again, it's like it has that type of sound, which again is, I don't know if you would call that jazz, neo soul, southern soul, hip hop, southern hip hop from the 90s to 2000s. That kind of sound with the rim shot, the kick, and the hi-hats were, pretty prominent. And that's the type of vibe I got from what we had as far as raw tracks. So, that's how I mixed it. And that's pretty much the way it goes. Like I said, I didn't do a lot of plugins, as you can see. It was mainly about fader levels and panning. So, turned out pretty nice. funky to me. Soulful, very soulful. Alright, man. And that's Soul Interpretation by Lawrence Christopher. The song is called Dear.